returns to talks, could we see him cave to the president's demands, as he has in the past? Let's ask National Taxpayers Union EVP Brandon Arnold and Walser Health Management CEO Rebecca Walser. Hi, guys. Thank you both for being here. Okay, Brandon, let me begin with you. Do you see Joe Manchin caving? And if so, what's he going to give up? You know, we got $4 trillion, $5 trillion. I think the last I saw from Manchin was he was looking at $1.8 trillion, which I think just won't fly with the Democrats.
Yeah, he certainly wants a slimmed-down package, and I do think this bill is still alive. It's kind of like the knight from the Monty Python movie where it keeps getting its arms and legs lopped off, but it says it's just a flesh wound and it hops along. So will Manchin cave? Well, you think back to 2009 when they were struggling to get Obamacare passed. What did they do? They sent hundreds of millions of dollars to states like Nebraska, the Cornhusker kickback, to the Louisiana Purchase, and they effectively bought off senators. I think that's very much an option right now, as is the case where they could slim down this package and make it more amenable to Senator Manchin. So this is a live fire exercise, and taxpayers ought to be very, very concerned.
Yeah, certainly so. It's just a flesh wound. I love it. Rebecca, look, the point is that will Mr. Manchin, Senator Manchin, cave as Joe Biden doesn't want to cave to the progressives? So you have this pushing and pulling and tugging, as you always do on Capitol Hill. But how do you think this plays out?
You know, Ashley, this is just the wrong timing, and I just don't know why everyone isn't talking about that. Why are we talking about passing a multi-trillion-dollar package after we already passed a trillion-dollar package, after we spent $8 trillion fighting corona, and we're still federally stimulating the Federal Reserve $120 billion because we haven't started to taper yet? What is going on? This is cognitive dissonance. This is saying, oh, we won $5 trillion, and now it's $3.5 trillion, and now we're cutting into $1.75 trillion. But the Penn Wharton Budget Office basically analyzed this and scored it at a $4.26 trillion package, even at its reduced version. So if Joe Manchin caves on anything in his life, this is not the time to cave. Stick to your guns, Joe Manchin. America is behind you.
Very quickly, I want to follow up on that, Rebecca. So with, inflation running rampant, how naive do you think Joe Biden is to propose this massive spending bill? I mean, in the middle of a COVID crisis at the same time.
Let's get this under control. Let's get the world back to whatever level of normal we can. We do not have the ability at this point to keep borrowing this much from the central bankers of the world. We printed $25 trillion and counting because of corona worldwide, $8 trillion in the United States of America alone, and we're still printing money as we speak today. Let's get this seriously under control. Unless we want Marxism and socialism and communism, which will follow from this big of a debt burden, our children are enslaved, our grandchildren are enslaved, and our great-grandchildren are enslaved under the terms of this bill. It's got to stop.
Well, Brandon, Chad Pergram brought up the issue of executive orders. I mean, does Joe Biden go down that road and kind of cherry pick what he can and ram it through an executive order?
Well, I think that's a possibility for sure, but it is limited what the president can do via executive order. I think we need to rein in executive power, whether there's a Republican in the White House or a Democrat in the White House. But what we saw with Joe Manchin is expansion of things like federal minimum wage by using executive order, starting to expand that to people that work on parklands. So that actually does start to have an impact on the private sector. I think they're looking at every particular option that they possibly can, but I think the initial path that they're going to pursue here is legislative in nature. They're going to exhaust all their options. Hopefully they run out of options pretty soon, and then they will look to the executive option.
We shall see, as they say. I want to get onto this issue. The massive spending bill, of course, just one of the issues being weighed by investors. There's also inflation, the Fed, COVID, the midterms. It goes on and on. All of that is certainly a consideration. Analysts, or a growing number of analysts, say it could be a rocky year for stocks. Inflation up, stocks down, volatility. Rebecca, would you agree with that analysis?
Absolutely, Ashley. And anyone who's out there prognosticating a banner year, we might turn into a banner year, but we're going to experience some pain. You know, you're always looking at mean reversion when you don't have the economic fundamentals to support it, with 10 million plus job openings, with massive year-over-year inflation that we haven't had since 1982, with the China economy on the verge of collapse. They're just not reporting it. We know about Evergrande. We know all of these property management companies in China are failing. So China's on the verge of collapse. That will have a contagion impact on the U.S. The Federal Reserve is going to taper. We're talking about 3 rate hikes. We've got massive inflation. We have a political economy that's going nowhere. The country feels like we're heading in the wrong direction. And we have midterms. Actually, this is a recipe for disaster in the middle of a global pandemic that's still not under control. So people need to brace themselves. Let's be real.
Very quickly, Brandon, I've literally got 20 seconds. Inflation, do we get our arms around it, or is it just going to continue to roll along the rest of the year?
Well, I'm pretty concerned about inflation, and the biggest concern, of course, is the threat of this Build Back Better package. There's only so much the government can do. One thing they can do is make the problem worse, and that seems to be, unfortunately, the path that Biden and Pelosi and Schumer want to go down. Hopefully they get off of this, and we can start to address some of the supply chain concerns, reduce tariffs and things like that will improve the inflation situation instead of digging this ditch even deeper than it already is.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Great stuff, Rebecca and Brandon. Thank you so much for being here on this first day of the new year of trading and everything else. We look ahead with hope, that's for sure. Thank you so much.
Amen.
A mix of